When did I get a message?
You have one new message.
Hey, JP, you fucking freak, we're partying. Where are you at? I'll chirp you later. Here's Sam.
Hey, JP, we celebrated the game tonight. Stop it.
You mean the phone? My name is JP. I'm a robot. I like robots. I have a robot vagina. I am not amused.
What up, everyone? DJ Nubis here with you on Metal Time Radio podcast with a new episode of When I Raid Alone. Not a super whole lot to report on. I'm going to be reacting to a couple of videos. One dealing with the Season 4 Diablo 4 coming up. I played the PTR for a week that they had out there to kind of test what they were going to do with the changes for Season 4. Had a blast, but we'll get into that in a few. But then I want to talk about the Stellar Blade stuff too, because it's very interesting. It's been an ongoing war of words and, back and forth between devs, DEI, and, of course, gamers ever since the whole SBI stuff kind of broke out. Even though SBI isn't really linked to Stellar Blade in any way, it still has an impact in terms of how people view games and what is deemed inappropriate to appropriate. So some backstory on Stellar Blade is the character of Eve, who you're playing in the game. She has some sexy outfits that you can achieve in the game. It's a Korean-based game that's been made up, or maybe it's Japanese. I can't remember. No, it's Korean. Um, so obviously their culture and everything, how they approach things, is a lot different in the Western civilization. Even though in the past we've had plenty of games that deal with like sexy characters in games, male and female, whatever. But of course, it kind of everything kind of took off when there was an article written from a French publicist who was comparing Eve to a sex doll, and that was really the only purpose for the game, which is nonsense. If you ever taken the time to actually research the game, and credit to, I can't remember who the article writer was for Kotaku, who I have some issue with in terms of like their senior editor, Alyssa Mercante, but this particular person who reviewed Stellar Blade, even though he was hot and cold on it, he did what a journalist should do, and that's stick to the gameplay, stick to what is either good about a game, the playability, the graphics, whatever, and that's what they did. They didn't even bother touching on the silliness about whether or not they felt Eve was sexualized or anything else. They didn't really play a factor in the review, which I commend that article writer 100%. Like, that's how you go about reviewing a game. You don't get caught up in your personal feels or any agenda or biases that you have against the gaming community or whatever. Any gaming creator that creates a game that you don't think is doing the right thing in your opinion, like, that's the problem with people like Alyssa, is they don't know how to actually be journalists. Or just petty little kids who get these jobs and then they just like cry and go to battle of words over people on the internet. So yeah, I have to give credit where credit's due for that particular author for Kotaku. In fact, I'll try to find it up here real quick. I just, to me, it's like when you write a review, that's your goal, is to write about the game, not your personal feelings about anything else. And I don't know. It kind of, rubs me the wrong way that someone like Mercante is actually in charge of running these people. Let me see. Here we go. Right here. Levi Winslow, which was posted April 24th. So good on them. It's a good article. Gives you the pros and cons of the game, how they played it, how they felt like its playability is, whether or not they enjoyed it to some degree. They said there's some problems with it they found, but I think you're going to find a lot of people to say that Stellar Blade may not be the perfect game in terms of like playability or fun or whatever, but there's a lot of people that like it. And then of course you get the extremists who are just pushing back for the sake of pushing back, which I get some of that too, because you almost need to when you have people like Alyssa purposely trying to destroy a game because she can't handle a sexy character in the game. I mean, so you get the people that are like, well, it's the game of the year, but this is what happens. This is what happened with Hogwarts Legacy, is that if the trans community and the allies hadn't gotten so butthurt that JK brand is getting some money due to this game, if they hadn't got so butthurt about all that and then tried to harass and bully gamers for playing and testing out the game, which is something sometimes they're paid to do, then you wouldn't have had like a gazillion people go out and purchase the game, because it ended up being like game of the year or top selling game or something like that. So I actually got curious enough to buy it, played it, probably after about 2 weeks, got bored with it, and that's it. But I didn't mind spending the money because I felt like the attacks on gamers for simply just going out trying to do what that particular article writer for Stellar Blade did is just stuck to the premise of the game. He or she didn't get caught up in the fictional world of, oh no, it doesn't hit all the right marks for me. I'm too triggered. I can't handle the sexy girl. That's, they stuck to what it's about, the game, and that's what their job is. That's being a professional. That's doing your job. So, yeah, And that's what a lot of people were doing with the game. And then what happened was you had people going out buying Hogwarts. They were saying, "Oh, I'm going to buy 5 copies just so I can piss off all the trans people and they're crying and bullying people." That's what happens. You made it worse. Your whining and crying made it worse because nobody would have really given a shit had you not spoken up and started doing that crazy, stupid shit. But anyway, we've now devolved into more weirdness with Stellar Blade. It no longer is about so much the character, whether or not she's in skimpy outfits, because what happened was in the western part of the universe, in the western part of the universe where we're getting this game, I believe it's either Sony or Warner Brothers. I can't remember who's behind. I want to say Sony. Decided to censor some things. So there was something about the graffiti on wall, right, on one of the graphics that the character's in, and it says hard R. Now, for me, hard R is something that's applied to entertainment like movies and games where it's, warning you that there could be violence, nudity, or whatever. But apparently, hard R also has a tie into racial culture with blacks. Like it's supposed to be like a hidden word or negative slur against black people, which I've never heard in my life whatsoever. And I can't imagine that Koreans knew this and tried to insert it as a way to saying fuck you to black people. Like guys like Mugen Lord, who I interviewed some time ago, who's black, like he didn't even look at it that way. I guess everyone in the Western culture, for the most part, knows it as applying to like a hard rated movie. So it's weird that when they made the complaints, I'm like, how is this even a thing? Like I've never heard of it being used that way. But apparently there are some that say it is. But either way, the Koreans did, wipe it out, put something else up there that, whatever. I'm not too worried about that part. I know some people made a bigger deal about it just because it's part of the other censorship that's going on. But that one, look, if you're offending people and it's of a particular race, even if it's not your intention, I think Koreans did the right thing and just said, all right, we didn't realize that, so we're going to wipe it away and put something else there, But the other things that changed is like the bunny suit for Eve that you can do. Now, personally, like whenever this comes to PC and I am going to buy it, I'm going to play because it looks great. The outfits that people want the most are the ones I don't really want to play the most. Like I've seen her in some full garbs and robes that look great, like more appealing in some ways than the bunny suit, which is kind of ridiculous, but it is what it is. You have the option, right? There's options. It's not like she's only stuck in this particular bunny suit the entire game, or the skin suit, as they call it. She has so many different outfits, man. Like I'm looking to try out different ones to see which one looks the coolest for a warrior chick, right? But apparently the original version of the bunny suit was much more skimpier. So of course the Western culture over here, which they admitted, made it a little bit more, maybe not as enough ass, even though to me, the end result still shows plenty of skin, right? To me, a lot of this stuff is kind of petty to get upset about one way or the other. Like, I don't think we need to like drag this out. But the thing that I will stand behind the gamers here with is when they bought the game as uncensored. This is how it was advertised. Okay. So it's like any other product that you buy. When you're buying something and they're advertising it in one way. So if they're advertising, you're getting this game, we're going to give you 5 skin downloads, right? Just for a hypothetical. And then you get the game, there's only 1 download. That's disingenuous. It's basically fraudulent. You sold it on a particular premise and didn't live up to that. So if people are asking for their money back, I would understand. This makes sense. Like that's uncool. You don't get to do that where you've advertised a product and you don't get the product. Is it so much that it's going to ruin the game for me? No. But I understand the anger behind it. But that's not even the biggest part of the issue regarding Stellar Blade. Right now, we have some issues where, jokingly or not, on social media, there are people that are really butthurt at Grums, Asmongold, whoever, where they're coming out and they're basically putting a hit list number, right? So they're like, the first guy, Tone Man, says, I will give 20 grand to anybody who makes this guy disappear. This is in regards to Grums. Like, Grums is a former Blizz dev who has been very outspoken about some of the problems with DEI in the gaming industry. Like, he sees some issues with it. And so it's made a lot of other devs and companies mad that he's speaking out because he's within the industry. But you have this guy, whether or not he's joking or not, which really, going by the tone of the fucking tweet, is not joking, which is ironic because the guy, after getting called out and dragged all over social media, scrubbed everything. He can't, he canceled out his X account, his Instagram accounts. Like, he does not exist, at least under that name. He could be somewhere else on a backup social somewhere, right? So, we kind of laugh about it, but, I don't know what Grums did in terms of maybe inform law enforcement. Maybe that's part of the reason why this guy has disappeared. Who knows? Doesn't want to be found, right? Which you can't always hide. You can try to scrub your accounts, but they can always find you anyway. So don't think you've gotten away if he does try to get the law involved with you. But then, Asmon, who was kind of laughing about the guy disappearing himself, there's a chick named Denon's TV who has a close working relationship with guys like Hassan and others like that, as far as the political left or political commentators. And so she's, looking at the video, and I don't know what kind of acts she has to grind with Asmon. Like, I don't know if they have any past history or not, but she's looking over the video, and then she goes, out of nowhere, like, oh, well, I'll raise it to 30K as long as we get more bigger boobs for Eve, and then I get the best of both worlds. It's something to that effect. You'll see it when I start playing the video, I'm sure. So, obviously, she's probably doing it tongue in cheek, but the reality is you don't really get to joke about things like that. Like, you can't walk into a theater and yell fire, even if you're doing a prank or not. The law takes it seriously. It's like, so you can't go online and say, I'm going to kill the president. You can't do that. That will get you in hot water, period. So what you need to do is, in this case, as Mona said, he's informed Twitch because that's where she streams from. And he's he hasn't really decided on the law yet. I think he's waiting to see if Twitch does anything at all, which, to be fair, Twitch is very inconsistent with their discipline of, especially females, of the female streamers who are generally left-leaning. Like, they don't really punish them enough or at all. And because they're big draws. I think Denims has over 80,000 K, at least on X. I don't know about her Twitch account, but either way, she's got a solid following. And so, that's money, that's her income. But the reality is, if you're breaking rules, which is in the TOS for Twitch and YouTube and stuff like that, and X, you should be getting banned, suspended. Maybe not permaban, because again, you have to decipher whether or not she was fucking around or not, but you got to take it seriously enough to say, hey, we got to put you in timeout, man. Like, you can't do this, joking or not. You can't do this shit, right? So I don't know. Like, she apparently Denham's deleted the tweets, but again, people have the receipts. They have this shit. So has been sent to Twitch. I don't know if Twitch has done anything about it. I know it takes them a couple of days to kind of review stuff and go through the whole thing. So let's go ahead, lady. I have not watched this, so we're going to watch it together. It's about 30 minutes. I may stop it here and there just to expand upon what she might be saying. She may be saying stuff totally different than how I feel. I have not watched this. So this is a lady YouTuber named Lady Decade. So we'll check it out. Here we go.
Journalists have been mocking gamers and the censorship of Stellar Blade. Few games in recent years have generated as much unhinged behaviour from journalists as that of Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade is the gift that keeps on giving, as it's seemingly continuously highlighting the rampant, deluded perspective of the world held within the online game journalism sphere. Examples of this we have already covered include the editor of IGN France correlating Stellar Blade's character design with women ending their own lives, as well as a writer from thegamer.com who worked as a television producer for Adam Ruins Everything, who wrote a hit piece abusing gamers with childish name calling. With the game now available in stores and drama continues to unfold.
I find that so interesting too about, you know, like I said, I point out the list of Mercante. It seems like a lot of these devs or these journalists that are out there, like for all the insults they throw at gamers, they come out looking worse because, you know, these are people that are supposed to be professionals. Like, regardless if you think that YouTubers are wannabe journalists or, you know, like myself, like, you know, we want to kind of be in the hemisphere of making money at this, right? I don't, but I would love to because I'm getting older. I'd rather just chill and talk about things I want to talk about, like movies, entertainment, music, stuff like this, games, whatever. But you know, I don't get paid as a professional to do this, and these people do. So it's weird to me that they act so childish compared to what they're accusing other people of doing. So if you get a guy like Grumps who makes a statement that, you know, the game isn't like, you know, if he just says the game isn't sexist or too sexy or whatever, people get mad. And these journalists, they come unhinged. Like, these are people that are supposed to be in professional roles acting like petulant children. Like, it's really embarrassing. I feel bad for them. Like, it's like I get it. They take a lot of heat sometimes for stuff that they say, but you know, at the end of the day, you still have to be the bigger person in a sense because you're the ones that are supposedly the mature adults here. Like, you're the ones that are supposed to be doing, you know, the professionals. And the way they act, it's like, I don't think so, man. These are people that are given positions and the positions of power without the aptitude and attitude to really do the jobs. Like, it's really bizarre to me. So, you know, all the shit talking going back and forth between gamers and journalists and devs is like, it's actually the journalists and devs are looking worse out of all. Like, they can't handle debate. They either block you, because this is what happened with me. Alyssa blocked me simply because I stated the facts about the Kotaku and, you know, Cabrutus Rambo, who was making a list of the games that SBI worked on. Like, I just told him the facts, how an employee from SBI targeted this guy to try to get his account banned and everything from Steam, which had nothing to do with SBI in terms of like direct response until after that happened. So I stated a fact and she couldn't handle it. And then, like, even if we disagreed about her like supposed lack of understanding of the definition of racism, like, she doesn't even understand that. You know, most people don't. There's some people that do, but you know, when I push back on that again, she fucking like just banned it. Like, she can't handle debate. She can't handle people pushing back with facts. Like, it's crazy. And so, but she's supposed to be the professional, right? Like, she tried to pull this shit. Like, I'm not even a Melanie Mac fan, but I understand why Mac would not go on her stream, on Alyssa's stream, to do an interview, because it would have been a hack job. Like, you can't trust Alyssa to even do it truthfully or factually. She would chop it up and try to make Melanie Mac look like the worst person in the world. She would edit it out to make it like, you know, Alyssa was right and she was wrong. Like, you can't trust her. And then people wonder why the public are having a hard time with mainstream media and journalists. Like, you can't be trusted to tell the truth anymore. You were supposed to be the ones representing the people. You're not doing that. You're using your own agendas and pushing them, and then you're corrupt. It's really that simple. And you were corrupt. This Levi person who did an actual review on the game, that person deserves a senior editor job more than Alyssa Mercante. At least that person understands what their job is. So I don't get it, man. Like these petulant children that are running around on X and YouTube and Kotaku, like, it's ridiculous.
Fold. Today, we will not only be discussing the most recent controversies, but most spicy of all, analysing the hot takes of yet another editor of a huge gaming news site, and extremely annoyingly, for me at least, discussing the awful brand new Kotaku censorship circus article, which wasn't published until I had already finished writing the original script for this video. So please forgive me if any part of this feels a little disjointed, as I've had to rejig sections to fit in brand new important information. I am Lady Decade, join me as we continue to cover the ever-evolving Stellar Blade twaddle. So if you're into twaddle like this, as a removed from the game that some felt could be interpreted as unintentionally racist. However, others feel additional censorship has been implemented into Stellar Blade, which has received a much more adverse reaction from certain gamers. Examples of this, as demonstrated by this tweet, include Eve's holiday bunny outfits being altered.
Yeah, see, so it was more high cut initially, and then when they patched it, if you see over to the right, I know it's kind of hard to see here, but let's see. Yeah, there you go. So you can kind of see it's not as high cut now, but really, it's not a super difference to me in terms of sexiness or whatever. Personally, when I play the game, I'm not going to be playing as in this suit. This makes no sense as you're fighting. I know it's just more for aesthetic stuff, but it to me personally is not as big deal. But I understand, again, people paid for the unpatched portion of this, so maybe I know one person said when I bought the game, I turned automatic updates off, so maybe that's what people have to do if they want to keep the the uncensored version. But who knows if I load it up into the PC that it's automatically going to do that before I have a chance. You know what I mean? So it just depends.
To include a boob apron to remove the plunging V-neck on the design.
If you wear a boob apron, then you can look like a librarian, a receptionist, or someone who's allergic to parties. Why would anybody invent something to ruin a man's happiness and take away his dreams?
Aside from the inclusion of an unwanted titkerchief in the game in a throwback to the Lieberman attacks on Mortal Kombat, layers of blood splatter have been removed from the game too. In the United States, this is an M-rated game, leading many people to be perplexed as to why any content like this would be removed from the game, particularly when the Stellar Blade Twitter account promoted it just 1 week ago on the 21st of April as being a game that would offer the same uncensored version in all countries. While some believe, and perhaps rightly so, that the changes which have been included are incredibly minor, others believe that, on principle, it was the completely wrong thing to do based on the promise that the game would be completely uncensored. One of these principle-driven individuals, Mark Kern, former World of Warcraft team lead, is...
It's also should be noted that one of the arguments that some people have made against Eve and Stellar Blade is that they feel like Eve is more of eye candy instead of substance in terms of plot story, right? So but whenever you've played any game with different outfits, so I go back to MK11, Katana, Sonya, they all have different outfits you can achieve in the game. Katana, I have her in, which is basically like a Catwoman suit, right? Because I think that's a great look for her. With Casey Blade, I have her in the Harley Quinn outfit. So, you can get these different things and they're still sexy and cool. So, like, again, but does like Casey being in a Harley Quinn outfit change anything about, or does it have an impact on the game itself? Like in terms of story? No, but it's cool. But some people can't handle that. So when people brought up like, well, we have like a gay sex scene in the Last of Us game. I've never played it, but I saw the still, and I'm like, that's pretty crazy to have something that explicit in the game for kids. That's pretty crazy, right? But I don't care. It doesn't really bother me, but like you're uptight about suits, but you're not uptight about a gay scene. And of course their answer is, well, it's all part of the storyline, so it makes sense. I'm like, it doesn't matter if it's part of the storyline or not, because that gay scene, even if you took it out, isn't going to ruin the story. That's the whole point. Like, you could take out all the suits in Stellar Blade, it's not going to ruin the story. You could have them both in, it's not going to ruin the story. So the argument that for Last of Us it makes sense for the story, but the other one doesn't work, because you can remove both or put them both in, and it doesn't change the gameplay whatsoever. It's just people who get triggered by stupid shit, and unfortunately, the ones that are against Eve are just bitches and soy boys. Like, that's all I can say. They are, because like that's the weakest thing to cry about. But this all stems from like the whole SBI wars and everything else, which I've done past videos on and talking about it. But yeah, let's continue on here.
So against the altering of Stellar Blade, the team started a popular petition on change.org to get the version of the title many gamers feel they were promised, and thus pre-ordered and spent their hard-earned money on. Kern would outline why his petition matters, as well as an 8-step plan to uncensor the game. Despite being launched just 3 days before the time of writing this video, the petition has already amassed over 44,000 signatures, with that number changing by the time this video was edited. Mark on his petition writes, Stellar Blade is a phenomenal new game they just launched on PlayStation 5 worldwide, but it has a problem. The content has been censored from the original trailer version posted by Sony. We as gamers want this content back. We relied on it, we made the game the #1 pre-order worldwide because of it, and this is the true game we want. Stellar Blade is more than a game, it has become a cultural beacon for freedom of expression in a time where game publishers like Sony are censoring games more than ever. Stellar Blade was a breath of fresh air, and gamers rallied behind it because it meant things were changing.
So yeah, where did I do with it? Here we go, I think. So she's right, the petition has changed. You can see now it's at 69,857. So it's getting to its goal. I don't even know if that really will change anything in the long run.
Getting better, and the voice of
that's good news in a sense that people are taking it seriously. But when it comes time for me, even if I can't stop the update from happening with Stellar Blade, like, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Like, it's just not that big a deal for me. But I support people doing this 100%. Like, if you were sold a particular version of a game that you're supposed to get, then you should be receiving that game, or at least have the ability to repatch it to the point that it's, if somebody wants to have the option to take out that stuff, that's a great thing to have. Options are the best thing ever. It doesn't matter if it's character development, character creation, whatever, what you want to see in a game. Like, I think at one point, one of the Mortal Kombat games literally had you can turn off the blood and fatality. So why not just have options? It seems like nobody wants options anymore. Like, it's so ridiculous.
Creative freedom was ringing loud and clear, but for reasons unknown the game was censored, changes were made. What we received after our good faith purchase was not the game as advertised. We believe in the game, we believe in Shift Up, and we are asking to get the game we believed in. Revert the censorship changes, patch the game, and you will find that even more gamers will join you and support you. All gamers can help by signing this petition. It will be printed in Korea and delivered in Korea to Shift Up offices, and physically printed and delivered to Sony PlayStation North America offices. Spread this petition on social media with the Free Stellar Blade hashtag. As for this statement, although quite short, there are a few things to unpack. Firstly, I want to address the point where Mark refers to the game as a cultural beacon for freedom of expression. Playing devil's advocate, you can argue that the term sounds very poetic and over.
It was kind of funny. Asmongold played this game for like a couple hours, and people were really giving him shit because he wasn't utilizing the block feature or the avoiding feature. Like, I haven't played it yet, so I don't know like how hard or easy it is, but it was just kind of funny. They were just giving him such a hard time. Like, he still got through the game. I don't think he beat it, but he just wanted to hack and slash, which sometimes when you're testing out a game, which I know something Asmon does, he gets a new game, he just goes out and kind of feels it out and see how it is, and then he kind of come back and learn some things here and there. But it just depends how much interest he has in a game. He probably lost interest in a game just to the point that it's like it kind of repetitious maybe. But he was taking so much shit about it. I was like, dude, just let the guy play the game like the way he wants to play it. If everybody else wants to play it their way, let him do it. Like, you shouldn't have to like harass someone and like, oh, he's so stupid because he doesn't do this. Like, come on, dude, be better.
The top. And at the end of the day, is it really? It's a video game with a certain target demographic in mind, produced to make as much money as possible. That being said, Mark actually does have a point. The phrase, a cultural beacon for freedom of expression, typically refers to an entity, institution, city, or country that serves as a prominent symbol or example of supporting and promoting free speech.
I still wish I
and
could play that
artistic
other
freedom.
character, man.
This could be a place or organisation known for its encouragement of
I know
open
that pisses
dialogue,
off all the soy
diverse
boys.
opinions, artistic experimentation, and, most importantly, resistance against censorship. The fact that only last week the Stellar Blade Twitter account was building hype for the game, promoting it around being uncensored in all countries, is proof of this. Regarding what Mark Kern says about games becoming increasingly more censored than ever, there was certainly a time in the 80s and 90s when video games were heavily censored, particularly when being released on Nintendo
And music.
platforms. There are countless examples of this ridiculousness, such as poison being removed from Final Fight so you can't be seen hitting a woman, blood being changed to green in Mortal Kombat, and all Christian symbology being removed from series like Castlevania. There's always
Fuck
been
that.
mass censorship in video games. This is nothing new. However, based on the way that Stellar Blade was promoted, that's where the problem arises. The point that I assume Mark is trying to make is that games are now being censored in pathetic ways that no one would even have considered in the 90s, with even retro games being retconned to remove content in fear someone might get triggered. Examples of this include the Japanese imperial flag being removed from the bathhouse stage in the most recent iteration of Street Fighter 2, and even more pathetically, some questionable dialogue changes in the Switch version of Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. The craziest of these are some of Bowser's lines being altered to prevent him from fat-shaming his underlings. Yes, you heard me right. A villain in a video game is being prevented from saying certain things in case they are perceived to be too mean. Personally, I feel that if you're offended by what Bowser said, then in his words, I order you to do some sit-ups, Tubby. Honestly, it's such a silly and harmless line to remove. So, bearing in mind that the game was promoted using anti-censorship rhetoric and nonsense like what's going on in Paper Mario at the moment, it's fair that some people feel a bit aggrieved as they don't feel they have been delivered the product they have been sold. This is one of those situations where, although what has been changed, in my own opinion at least, is...
I'll say this though about Stellar Blade. Like, I know the option's probably not in there, but what I say now is going to be very controversial with people, because I do believe in auto battle, but I also believe that you should take some skill in order to create your setup. So if you think of like MK11, when you had auto battle for certain parts of the game, you still had to be creative in the way that you set up your character for the auto battle. Granted, MK11 is probably a little more archaic in that realm of stuff, but if you could set up, like, let's say you play Eve to a chapter or two before you can do the auto battle, like, or before you start getting all your specific powers and stuff, like, auto battle would be cool as shit, man. Like, as long as in order to beat the bosses and stuff, that like you had a certain setup of your build and skills, like, in order to do that. And as long as you have an option for manual and auto, I think it'd be great, but I don't think it's available in this game, which is too bad.
really really very minor. I understand the principle and moral drive
So she
behind
looks great
consumers
in that
being
green
unhappy
suit.
to
Like,
allow game
I don't mind
publishers
that at all.
to pull the rug from under them. People are angry because they feel duped by the marketing. A lot of people have been very vocal in their support for a game, which has then proceeded to mug them off. So after I had finished writing this video, it transpired that Kotaku felt so irritated by Mark Kern's petition that they swiftly proceeded to publish a massive hit piece on not just his petition, but also his personal character and integrity. So just to clarify, I wrote the rest of this video before this hit piece was even released. This part I'm adding about the Kotaku article is just more fuel being chucked on a fire that was already a raging inferno of game journalist propaganda and gaslighting. Senior reporter Ethan Gatch has published a controversial article titled "The Stellar Blade Circus Explained." And when I say Stellar Blade Circus Explained, I guess he means a curated version of events that fails to document any of the ongoing game journalist gaslighting we have week by week been spotlighting on here. The false equivalences drawn between the character's design and self-deletion, along with the death threat Mark Kern has since received, which predates the entirety of this video and most certainly this hit piece, which has been designed to destroy his character. But more on that later, as this script has been written in a strange order. Ethan Gatch describes the Free Stellar Blades petition as surprisingly complicated and kind of sad. Then, in just the second paragraph of his article, resorts to name-calling, reducing Mark Kern to, in his words, an online gamer angry grifter. From the trend I have noticed.
See, that's why you can't take guys like that seriously as a journalist, because it's no longer about being objective in your piece. It's now because you can already, your bias and your agenda bleeds through. The minute you start name calling people because you might disagree with them personally, but when you're writing a piece and you're supposed to be doing it from an objective stance about everything that's going on, then you've already lost a battle. So this guy is not a good journalist. He doesn't know how to handle his feelings. And so he name calls people. And that's where he's a loser. He loses that battle every time. Anytime that you revolve into that, and you can't handle like a well thought out argument, then you've already lost a battle.
Gate 2.0, with Kern being one of the names he deems responsible, despite completely ignoring all of the purposeful gaslighting coming from their side that's inciting the majority of the animosity in the first place, including doubling down by relinking this debacle with their previous dishonest article that tried to rewrite history regarding the Sweet Baby Inc. drama. Everything politically on Kotaku.
And this is what I was talking about. Like, whenever these journalists tried to do this, and every time we'd go back and, you know, not just me, there were a lot of other people who were trying to do the same thing. It's like, oh, well, some of this happened, yes, but then you're missing how it all started. You're missing about the attacks and the harassment campaign provided by Chris Kindred, who started the whole fucking thing from SPI. And then Alyssa jumped in, so she added to the fire all the shit that started happening afterwards. So when they start complaining, well, we're getting harassed, we're getting death threats, well, that's because you started it all. You fucking provoked the fucking bear. It doesn't mean what they're doing is right if they're threatening you. But if you go out of your way and you're lying about how this shit started, well, that's a problem. You are dishonest in how you were putting out their story. And like, the only way for people to fight back against corrupt journalists is to get on social media and YouTube channels and Twitch. That's the part that pisses off journalists the most, is that now we have a voice. We can go out on record like this in video and set the record straight. Like, they don't like that. It used to be good. Could you imagine if you didn't have a voice to do that? You would have to take everything that these so-called journalists say as verbatim, because you'd only have a select few people who knew the truth, but they wouldn't be able to tell anybody or prove to anybody. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but these journalists have become character assassinators. Like, they're just not very trustworthy. This guy tries to come out and says explain everything, but he's biased. He shows it right there when he starts attacking people, flaming them, and then leaving out key points of how the SBI stuff even started. So when you can't even be honest about that, there's no way no one's going to take you seriously.
Kotaku is extremely one-sided and extremely hollow. What makes it funnier is that later in the article, Kotaku poke fun at the posted videos on the Stellar Blade petition, referring to them as so awkward they seem like a high-level caricature of the entire manufactured controversy. Which is highly amusing, as it was only last week on this channel that I noted that the editor of Kotaku, Alyssa McCanty, looks and behaves like a caricature of a left-leaning game journalist herself. Are they seriously not noticing this? Are they not looking in the mirror and perhaps considering...
Are we the baddies?
Just to be clear, I do not believe in goodies and baddies in real life. That's confined to fairy tales. I believe there is right and wrong on both sides, and that there is more than one set of defined caricatures in this narrative.
Yeah, it's called nuance, which apparently people who are like the Kotaku journalists, SBI, they don't understand nuance. And there are some people on the other side of this who are doing some god-awful things by the things they say to some of these people, but by and large, they're not the biggest voice of what's going on. But because these corrupt journalists are focusing on the minority of people doing these things, that's why you never see them actually call out Chris Kindred or anybody else for doing the same shit. That's what you're seeing. They're trying to concentrate on these small idiots who aren't representative of the bigger problem that gamers have with what's going on in this whole scenario of crap.
And one seems to be much less self-aware than the other. Basically, the more weeks this discourse is going on, the more that both sides are doubling down and, to some degree, reaching continually further to make their curated narratives make sense. What makes this even worse is that if there is one thing the journalists are right about, is that there are thousands of people floating about online who aren't very eloquent when it comes to making the points they want to make about their distaste for the Stellar Blade censorship and ongoing, frankly, bullying from gaming news sites mocking their opinions and perceived lack of understanding. These journalists are more often than not university educated, are trained writers, have massive platforms and, to a degree, can eloquently put their point across. Certainly better than the unwashed masses they seem to look down their noses at, who aren't trained writers defending themselves to the best of their abilities in comment sections. This is an extra layer that makes a lot of this behaviour from game journalists so abhorrent, as firstly, they are clearly educated enough that they should know better, and secondly, they are writing one-sided, biased takes with a pure...
And I think that's a growing problem. So, like I said, I pointed to not too long ago that, these journalists and devs, they all have like these big platforms they can speak from. If the normal gamers didn't have this, we would be subject to the disinformation these people would be putting out there. And the problem that I notice, maybe not with every dev or every journalist that does game reviews or game creation, when I look at stuff like Blizzard right now in Diablo 4, I was talking about it with, I forgot who I was talking with, but basically you have these developers who aren't really gamers. They're just creationists. Like, they can create the game, they can create cool shit. But because they don't play games really necessarily, at least most of them, and they haven't really played Diablo 4 as much, like in terms like when we watched them drag out those two girls who were testing the game in the dungeons, they couldn't play it. They weren't very good. And now granted, they had to kind of play the game and talk in front of a camera, but it wasn't like, when you watched the Path of Exile 2 demonstration where you had one guy talking about the gameplay while one dude who knew how the gameplay, who was creating the game, was, even though he was struggling because the game's hard, he was showing much better progress and much more understanding of how the game worked. The problem with Diablo 4 right now is that we do have some devs who are doing good. We've figured it out that season 2 and season 4 are probably going to be awesome. Season 1 and 3, not so much. It's because you have 2 different groups working on this game. It seems like the ones that are doing 2 and 4 have a better understanding of what the gamers want and how to apply that into a game that's fun. Is it still a work in progress? Sure. But it doesn't shock me that people like I don't believe for an instant that Alyssa Marcante plays video games, at least not anymore. I don't think that's what she's concerned about. I think she's just more about activism than she is about gaming. So why on earth would you have somebody who's in charge of a gaming mag on Webzine running that when they're not even a gamer? That Levy Winslow person, you can tell they're a gamer. They played the game. They reviewed the game. That's what their job is. And that's all people want. They just want people to review the game. Like, sure, you can make mention of like, oh, kind of felt like we could have used some other characters. And it's like, there's never any nuance when it comes to arguing about DEI. So I don't personally have a problem with Sweet Baby Inc. in terms of being a company. You want inclusion? Great. If there's a company out there that wants to hire you to do that, great. But don't get mad if there are groups of gamers that don't really want that, especially if there's no versatility with the characters. Now, I get it. Some games only have white characters, which is unfortunate. But we don't want games where they're just one color anyway. Like, I want a chance to have different builds, different character creations, different sexes you can play. Even if I don't play a trans character, it should be an option for those that are. Like, it's not that hard. Why not do it all? Like, it's not that hard to do these things. And it's not that hard to have this discussion. It's really stupid that we can't, because you either feel like you have to be on one side or the other. It's dumb. There's room for nuance here, and there's room to discuss this shit logically and civically.
Your intention of trying to discredit people. I suppose I'm doing this to some extent myself, but at least I'm self-aware enough to bloody admit it. And for the record, I'm not particularly educated and didn't go to university. Maybe this is why I'm staunchly centrist, why I can see the good and bad on both sides, and why I feel masses of empathy towards those who are being attacked purely over their tastes in gaming. I guess the situation feels so bad because it's coming across like the university-educated game journalists are essentially punching down, even though the people they're punching down at have some very valid points. Now, this is where the original story I was working on can now resume, as drama from game journalists doesn't stop there. In fact, an editor of the gaming news site GameSpot.com took to X to poke fun at Mark Kern and tens of thousands of other gamers' grievances. Accompanied by screenshots of Mark Kern's Change.org page, Jessica Cogswell states in her tweet, "This is the most unhinged behaviour I've seen in quite some time, and I have a 2-year-old." So, let me get this straight. She disapproves of tens of thousands of gamers who feel they have been missold a product through what they feel to be false marketing, and calls them unhinged for feeling that way, with the cherry on top, comparing those she doesn't agree with to babies. That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know where to start with this stupid tweet, as not only is it directly insulting tens of thousands of people, but she's also insulting her own child by alluding to them being unhinged too. I'm a mother of 2 children, currently 3 years old and 5 years old. Both lads at times can be demanding and challenging, but at no point would I refer to their behaviour as being unhinged. They're children, acting like children. So I'm not sure where the dunk is, unless it's her own parenting skills or lack thereof. For the record, I don't know this lady and I have no clue how she parents, and that's no one's business in any way, shape or form, but that doesn't detract from her tweets being unhinged and making little sense whatsoever, even if it was just a rubbish joke attempting to poke fun at the people she doesn't like. When you think about it, it's terrible that people are willing to tweet every random ridiculous thought that pops into their head, no matter how stupid, and it becomes even more alarming when you consider that this woman is an editor of GameSpot. If she can't even handle sending out appropriate tweets that make sense, how can we possibly have any trust or confidence in the outlet that has empowered her? John F. Trent of that'sparkplace.com would highlight that Cogswell's unprovoked attack on gamers is not an isolated incident, and she has years of tweets offering up similarly combative takes and fringe ideas. Collating some of her outrageous tweets, Trent spotlights that as recently as the 29th of March of this year, this professional game journalist would laugh at who she refers to as incel gamer dudes, expecting games to have hot characters and characters representative of them at the...
Okay. But see, the problem with her tweet is, one, that's exactly what people of color and trans people want too. Right? That's the whole reason why they're pushing DEI stuff. They want more of that. So again, it comes down to, like, it isn't that Jessica's necessarily wrong, but why can't we do all of it? Like, why do you have to strip one to have the other? Like, it makes no sense. And this is the thing that a lot of these people like Cogswell misses. Like, I think she's pretty young, so, and that's part of the problem, I think. And I say this because a lot of the younger people that are in these journalist positions and devs and developers, they didn't grow up with like a lot of games that we did. And a lot of these games had diversity, inclusionness, and even sexy male characters, etc. So it isn't like this is some newborn thing that only happened within the 5 last years. You know, like, we've had attractive characters in gaming for a long time. So why it is that they feel like if something's all of a sudden changed to the point that, oh, these guys feel like they have to have hot chicks. Well, what's wrong with having hot chicks? Like, if that's what you're into, what difference does it make? And so it's just weird to me. Like, why are you so against hot chicks? Why can't you just let that game be its game? Like, if you don't like Stellar Blade because it only has one character you can play, don't play it. If you want to review the gameplay, great. But if you're out there just to do a hack job or to, claim sexism when there really isn't any, then that's not very productive and it's not very professional. So I don't know. It's just weird to me.
Same time. I don't know about you lots, but I haven't noticed a correlation between the sorts of people who crave a more idealistic style of design in video games with those who are complaining that video games need more representation. Again, it's that typical example of game journalists gaslighting, making points that don't actually exist. After evidently being rebuked in her replies, she replied calling them weirdos and telling them to get a life, since her previous tweets didn't make sense.
Which you just saw an example of where a journalist with an education acts like a petulant child, makes stupid comments, and can't have a solid rebuttal to what they're telling her. So what does she do? She either blocks them or she moves on and tries to go into a different direction with the discussion because she can't truthfully answer what they're telling her. Sure, there's probably some trolls in there, but you have to weed those out, right? But I guarantee you it's not a majority of the people that were pushing back on her. They're telling her, explaining to her exactly what their stance is. She just can't handle it. She's soft. A lot of these journalists and developers are soft. They get triggered easily. They start blocking people and shutting down their accounts when they can't handle people explaining to them why it is they're pissed about something. That's what it comes down to. You can't have any discourse with these people. They're too immature to be in these positions of jobs. Like, it's really embarrassing. How do you go about really having an honest discussion with a developer about a game if they aren't willing to hear you out? Because in their head, they only got their own shit. They only want it their way. But they're developers. They're supposed to listen to the consumer base. This is what frustrates so many people about Diablo 4 and Blizzard. it's taken a while for Blizzard to kind of catch up when the fans and the consumers are telling you what they want out of the game. You're just not doing it. I mean, at least at a faster pace. PTR might, or season 4 might change everything for Diablo 4. I don't know. I played it. We're going to get into it, but any game that has issues, if you're ignoring your consumer base because you can't get over your own personal hiccups, you don't belong in that job. And I don't understand how any company like Sony or whatever, Activision, whatever, that you create games for people to play. And it's about making money. If you're making games solely from an activist standpoint or an agenda or a narrative, if I own that company, I'd fire you because I'm here to make money, dude. Fucking, I'm here to make money. Yeah, sure. I want people to feel comfortable playing the game. Anyway, any character, any culture, any sex. But I'm here to make money. I don't need you pissing off my fan base of the game because you got some sort of like insecurity. Like it's bullshit. Come on.
And so she would double down, mocking those who said to her they didn't even ask for representation, vindictively stating, "Every other fucking time your collective tweets about how woke characters and women are in every role and you miss cis-het white men being allowed in things." Sadly, the way Twitter is designed is to encourage a smooth brain discourse so that people can argue back and forth with one another using limited characters. It incites people to shoot from the hip rather than taking time to think and respond eloquently. The website is basically imbecile battle royale. There are no winners. There are only people trying to make each other look foolish, with ultimately no one winning and everyone looking like heads. Unfortunately for this GameSpot editor, she now has a documented record of making a fool of herself with low-effort takes and unsubstantiated claims and statements. So going back to that last tweet accusing other people of complaining about woke characters and missing cis-hetero white men being allowed in things, she bases her argument by drawing a false equivalence that gamers are asking for representation when that couldn't be further from the case. Online, sadly, most people seem incapable or, at the very least, can't be bothered to try to put across their opinions and beliefs properly. But I should imagine that what the people want, that she's referring to, is not to see themselves represented, but rather instead when they talk about wokeism and the decrease of character.
Oh, that's one thing I want to talk about too, because a lot of times when you get these people who are arguing about representation, right? So I'm not going to name the name, but there was this chick who is partnered up with Blizzard and Diablo and everything. And she's an overweight chick. Not that that's a problem within itself, but just to point out, because it's going to get to the point I'm making here. She made a tweet that in Diablo 4, she was able to make a character that she felt looked like her. Now, great. You know, if you feel like that's what you want out of the game, there's Diablo 4 gives you that variation that you can do to create a character that at least could similarly look like you. Now, I think it's limited when it comes to the sizes and how you can edit their body styles and stuff. But again, Blizzard could work on that going forward, right? But here's the thing that myself and many other gamers feel. I'm a male, straight male, married. But whenever I play games, whether it's on my phone, PC, console, whatever, 9 times out of 10, I'm playing a female character because I like the way that character looks or plays. Doesn't mean I don't have some male characters if I have multiple character creations, right? But none of those characters look like me. Now, I used to be much heavier. I'm getting better. I'm eating better. Better care of myself. But I still, when I play a video game, I'm not making a character that looks like me because I don't feel like I'm as representative as I want to be in life. So let's say if I played Marvel, well, I'd play Thor. and I'd play Thor looking like Chris Hemsworth because the dude's chiseled like beauty, right? That's who I play. But if I play Mortal Kombat, well, I play Sub-Zero and Katana are my top two. So you have a male who's always in costume, unless for whatever reason there's a different version that has the mask off. But either way, you can't change the look. It is what it is. But he's a badass. Katana is a female. I'm not female, but I do have her looking good in what she's wearing. But doesn't change her fighting style. So, for me, it's about the fantasy world. I don't go into a game wanting to represent myself because, if it was really true, like I'm still kind of overweight, not massively, but still got some weight, I'd be out of breath. Like this chick that's saying that she likes being herself and it represents her in that world. Well, sure, you're not going to run out of, you're not going to feel fatigue in the game because the game doesn't allow for that. But if that's how you see yourself, you would die in a real life situation like that. Like that's how you're going to go about how you approach a game. For many of us, it's about the fantasy part of it, of being somebody you're not. I wish when I play my werewolf game that I was a werewolf. I love werewolves, a certain type of werewolf, but it's not real. But if I'm going to play a game, I want to be the fucking werewolf and I want to look like a fucking Viking that turns into a werewolf. I'm not a Viking. It's not that hard. Like it's a fantasy world. It's fiction. That's what it's there for. The escapism. You shouldn't have to worry about, oh man, I'm a white dude. All they got is this girl. I can't play this game. It doesn't represent me. I mean, it's just so dumb. It's a dumb argument. I'm fine with the option. The option is there, obviously. But it's not a very good argument in terms of people wanting to get away from the real life world of shit. Because if you don't feel good about yourself, there's no fucking way you want it to look like you in the fucking game. It's dumb. It's a dumb argument. Sorry.
With certain characteristics in games, what they actually mean is they have concerns over what they perceive as forced diversity or tokenism in entertainment media, including games. They might argue that their criticisms are not about excluding diversity, but are against what they see as artificial or heavy-handed inclusion that prioritizes political correctness over storytelling and character development. What they are often trying to express, albeit often very poorly, is that ensuring every group is represented can sometimes come across at the expense of narrative coherence or authenticity, and they might...
Yeah, so here's something within, like when people talk about, well, the whole like Last of Us gay scene being an instrumental part of that storyline, right? These are the same fools that will look at Ragnarok, God of War Ragnarok, and say, because we had a character that was black, that there was never any black Norwegians, even though they were trying to compare this person to like a god. That isn't in any kind of history books or anything. It's not factual. It's not based on any facts. Yet these same people who said that Last of Us had to have the sex scene as part of the story because it was instrumental to the storyline, will then argue that it's okay to have a black character in a Norwegian Viking period that never was, but that we shouldn't be all worked up because they included a black person. Okay. So they can't even stay on the same wavelength in terms of storylines and how it's supposed to be historically accurate to the story that's going on in the game. Personally, don't care. Right? I don't. I just like consistency with your argument. You have to be consistent about it. You can't just flip-flop whenever you feel like it fits your agenda or narrative. That's bullshit. So you're seeing just scenes here. I don't even know if this is the character talking about or not, but it was a big thing, which to me probably wouldn't ruin the game any, but because I think the character didn't really have like a massive purpose in the game. It just was there, which is kind of dumb too, that they would just insert a random storyline just for the sake of doing it. To me, that's more like pandering. And if I'm a person of color, I'm more offended that I didn't even have a purpose in the game other than to say, we got token black in here. Awesome. Like, it's just dumb. Dumb.
advocate for a more organic approach to character and story creation, where decisions are driven by the narrative needs rather than external social pressures. On the subject of the word woke, it's not really a word that I like to use, as it's a stupid Americanism that doesn't really seem to have a proper universal meaning. What I have noticed though is that in America, both sides of the political spectrum seem to use that word as a stick to beat each other with. I only ever seem to see it used in bad faith, and is terminology that in the modern day is used in smooth brain arguments of one-upmanship amongst those trying to win the imbecile battle royale. For example, you'll regularly see people who are left-leaning demand others to define woke after they have witnessed someone use it as a pejorative term. This is usually done as a pretext so that they can then...
The thing about it is, and I've applied this to, you've probably heard talk about with some of my movie reviews and stuff, is that there's nothing wrong with like inclusiveness, wokenism, DEI. There's nothing on the surface wrong with that. The problem that they run into a lot of times, especially with movies, is when they try to use that narrative or agenda as the catalyst for their movie instead of a good story around it. So one of the things that we talk about with Marvel is like, the Miss Marvel movie or the Marvels. Like, if you don't have a solid story, you can have all these other things. If you want all women fighting in this movie, great. Just make it strong. Make it a strong story. Make the wokeism a minor part of it that's just kind of there. Because we've seen women in Marvel movies that weren't like off the deep end with the woke stuff that did just fine. It's not like Black Widow was misrepresented at all, even though they had one freak out moment where, was it Ruffalo and no, it was whoever played Hawkeye and of course Chris Evans. I think it was during Winter Soldier or maybe Civil War, but either way, the topic of the romance sort of trifecta between Captain America and Hulk was like, guess the way that Hawkeye, the guy that plays him, worded that he had to come back and apologize, which was dumb, but said, oh, she would just pass around like a whore. He was being jokingly talking about it because of the way the character has kind of gotten romantic interest on different characters in the Marvel universe. And of course, everyone lost their shit. This is the problem. Like, even if you're not crying about woke stuff, there's people crying about that kind of shit that's dumb as fuck. Like, it's a joke. Learn how to deal with the joke. It's so stupid. I don't think even Scarlett Johansson took offense to it. Like, it's just a joke. Like, they all are good friends and get along fine.
Then dismiss the definition provided,
You gotta have
argue
a
that
good
the
story,
concept
man. You have
doesn't
to have a
really
good story.
exist, or redirect the conversation to focus on perceived inconsistencies in the term's usage. This tactic is often used in debates to challenge the validity or coherence of the term woke, which has evolved to have various
All right, I might try to skip ahead a little bit because I only like to usually go around 2 hours with this, and I still got another topic to get to, but I'm trying to see if she gets to the threats.
They had the strongest economy on the Cogswell. Who really knows with these kinds of people? I'm requisites at this point. Now,
Maybe she doesn't
what's
get
quite
to it. I
tragic
thought
about
she
all of
did,
this is
though.
that underneath the universal human issue that transcends, especially for someone who claims to be a professional editor, women do need a thicker skin working in gaming. This does make sense though. Gaming is a male-dominated hobby, and I feel perhaps even the reason I'm much more drawn to it than many others of my biological sex is because I'm neurodivergent from other women due to having ADHD. I have hyperfocuses that other women don't, and was drawn to gaming even though marketeers at the time weren't trying to target women. Being more educated now, I think...
See, that's a cool look for Eve there. Oops.
trying to target women.
There.
Being...
Like, that's cool. glasses. She almost looks like Baroness from G.I. Joe there. Almost. That's cool. See, that's the look I would go with because that looks badass. I don't care about the bunny suit.
More educated now. I think looking back, it's because for me it was very sensory and could hold my focus, unlike many other things. Being a male-dominated space, the unfortunate byproduct.
I don't think she's
IGN or
even gonna
Kotaku
get
are
to
going
it.
to hold their staff and communities to a high standard, and the extreme $20,000 bounty placed on
Oh, here we
Kern by
go.
an individual like
Alright.
the one she works at, GameSpot. IGN or Kotaku are going to hold their staff and communities to a high standard and write a piece covering the abhorrent threats targeting Mark Kern, the man behind the Stellar Blade petition, which alerted me to the existence of Jessica Cogswell in the first place. Considering Cogswell's stance, does this imply that she and her fellow game journalists bear some responsibility for the extreme $20,000 bounty placed on Kern by an individual on Twitter? Personally, I don't believe they do, but this seems to follow the logic she suggests. What we should take from this is that neither side should make broad generalizations about entire groups, and everyone should strive to be more considerate in online interactions. I mean, honestly, we're all going to be dead soon anyway. If you're still here after all of that, it means that my opinions are engaging enough for you to listen to. So, since according to my detractors at least, I'm now a far-right grifter for having a different perspective to them, consider supporting my work over on Patreon. I put a lot of time and attention into these videos. Thank you, Patriots!
All right, I'm gonna see if I can find the video because she may not have seen the one from Denims. Like that might have been before she saw the one for Denims, because Denims is the one that I wanted to touch on too. Let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, I'm just gonna make it the quick one that Asmon did because we're gonna move on here in a minute. But get it to the point where it will come up at any point. All right. So we'll share this. So yeah, like I said, Grum's got that like 20K threat, and that dude disappeared. He cleaned out all his social media accounts. I don't know. It's because Grum's may have contacted authorities. I don't know, but then Denims, who I was talking about earlier in a video, who does a lot of political commentary, she came in and more than likely was tongue-in-cheek with this. Obviously, she threw in the boobs. That's what she's trying to use it as an excuse as to why she shouldn't be held accountable for being a degenerate. But the reality is you can't really make joking stuff like this because you can't control what other people do. You know, if I were to say to you, if somebody went out and hurt Asmongold, right, and said that, well, Denim said she'd pay us 30K to do it. Well, do you hold Denims responsible for that? Like, would you put her in jail for that? Like, I could tell you right now, Denims would say, no, I'm not responsible for what other people do. And she'd be right. But if you're not accountable for the shit you say, then that's a problem. Like, you are responsible in a way if you think it's a big joke. Don't do it. Don't say those kind of things. Or at least come back at the end and say, I'm just kidding. Don't take it seriously. At least you have some sort of out. She didn't have that. She just said everyone should assume she was joking. But here's the clip.
Put out bounty on Asmon Live. What is this? Oh, I saw this. Somebody linked this to me, obviously. We'll watch this. Here we go.
Listen, I'll up the number, okay? 30K to anyone who'll make this dipshit disappear and make Eve's breasts bigger. Okay, you have to do both. All right? Because then it's a win-win for me.
What a retard.
I get more breast, and I don't have to see that moron on my timeline anymore.
Oh my god.
So if you think about it.
Well, she's so aggressive. Well, it's simple. So how do you deal with a situation like this? It's really easy. I contacted Twitch about it earlier. I sent them the clip, and we'll see what happens. And, you know, maybe after that, I might put in a police report. I'm going to just wait and see how things play out. This is unhinged. It's completely unhinged. It's totally uncalled for. Yeah, this is like a felony. What is?
So yeah, basically that's it with that. Hopefully you heard it. So she went out of her way to like say those things, and like again, I don't know if she has a past history with asthma, if they butt heads. There are people that honestly believe that asthma is like a conservative, but in my opinion, he is no way that, because he's not like far left, but like, you know, he's probably a libertarian like me. You know, he says some things, and he and I agree on some things in terms of like, you need some sort of law, but there's a lot of people that are anti-law enforcement and everything else right now. But as a libertarian, there are certain things that I am a little more right on, and there's some things I'm more left on. So if I were to talk about right, it'd be I'm pro-gun. Like, I don't blame guns for people being evil and doing bad things with them. They are weapons. They should be handled respectfully. Even though I think it's not a good idea to teach your children how to use guns, I do think people have a right to bear arms. I don't have a problem with that. On the left side, I'm pro-choice. I believe that women should have the choice of, getting abortions, and I think it should be within reason. Like, you can't be just using abortions as a way of contraceptive because you're too fucking lazy to get the guy a condom or get on the pill or whatever. But the option should be there, because there are some rapes that happen. There are some incestual molesting that happens. Like, you don't force women to have kids out of certain things like that. Or if you're trying to not have a kid and it happens, like, you don't have it. Like, you should have that option. So it's all dependent on, like, I'm not going to get into particulars about what part of the semester that should be done. Like, I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you when the best time to do that. I would say, obviously, if the kid is like fully formed, that's not a good idea. I think you should be aborting way early in the pregnancy, because it's not really formed. It's, you do have life, but it's not like a fully formed fetus. So chopping them up, with their legs and shit when they're already kind of formed is not a good idea. So that's those late trimester or whatever you call it moments, you should be having the kid. Even if you want to put it for adoption, there are people that will adopt. But there's also the complications of, if you're pregnant, how does that affect your career, family, everything else? So definitely something to ponder when you think about me as a libertarian. Like, I'm not just one way or the other. I'm not a big Trump fan. I'm not a Biden fan. I think the Americans have gotten lazy. We've been too lazy in terms of holding our nation accountable for better choices and our leaders. We that's part of the problem. We have a lot of these leaders that are petulant children. Like, these are supposed to be people we're supposed to be looking up to lead us as a nation, and they're not doing a very good job of that. They're very bad. All right, let's dive into Diablo 4 Season 4. So I had a chance to play the PTR, which was a practice run for some of the changes that are coming in Season 4, Diablo 4. And it was amazing. I had a lot of fun. There's some big changes. One of them was you'll be able to forge your legendary items now. The counterpoint is, and I saw Slater do a video of this the other day, which is my main concern, because this will affect both each season realm or season, as well as the eternal realm. Now, you can't change uniques or uber unique, so you can't change anything on them. So are they going to drop different uniques to fit your build better? Or if not, then I'm going to have to go and strip down all my uniques off of my characters and go with legendaries, because there are certain things like Tubalt's Will pants that I use in a lot of my characters, because it builds up the stats for power. Well, the problem right now is your armor is very low unless you've found a way to balance it out throughout the process. But when I was playing PTR, and there's this like aspect called aspect of the juggernaut, I believe. You apply that to the pants and your armor goes up. Like in one case during PTR, like I gained like I had 5,000 or 6,000 armor and I got an extra 9. Totally made a difference in terms of how my survivability with my sorcerer would work. And then some of the other things you can do in terms of adapting the stats to match your build. I like to play Frost Sork. So I kind of do like a mix now between Conjuration and Frost. So having that ability and adaptability, changing your stats a little bit to match that is a fucking godsend. And you can achieve these aspects playing the game. They're like basically scrolls. So you just learn them and you get them. And they build up with your character. So that's a beautiful thing too. You don't have to fucking worry about losing shit every fucking time. And that's going to be an amazing run. Now, we're going to watch a video by Darth Microtransaction, who I love a lot. Haven't watched him in a while just because he's been playing other games, and Diablo's kind of been just like I've been done with season 3 for about a month. So that's why I was kind of begging Blizzard to release some of this shit earlier so I can go and play it out and have fun with it a little bit while we're waiting for the full season to come out. But they won't do. I think it's coming out next week, 14th. Is that next week? Maybe 2 weeks from now, May 14th, whatever day that is. But anyway, they have reforging you can do. Also, in terms of, it used to be the only way to really get 925 level items is by random on the open world or through Duriel, the boss fight. Well, now if you get above, like I think 85, that's all you're getting is like those kind of drops. And so the Hell Tides, oh my God. I still dislike losing the little, shit, what the fuck are they called? Again, I get these mind farts, man. You collect these little fire things, and so cinders. And so I just like the fact that if you die anytime during that, you lose like half your cinders and you have to build them back up so you can open these chests. So I wish that Blizzard would change that, because when you did the Blood Harvest during Season 2, you didn't lose anything, even if you died. But Hell Tides are amazing because they've got crazy creatures running around. Like they respawn very fast, and you can do these major events. So you can get a lot of good loot and stuff and get a lot of these 925 items. And that's where shit's gonna get real, dude. Then they have basically the rifts now, like they had from Diablo 3, similar something in Diablo 4. And these will be nice because you can run these, and the higher you want to go, the better, more powerful you can get. I'm not as good as some of these guys are that play this game. Some of these guys from the get-go were able to build these strong builds, and I try to use them, but if you didn't have certain things, you were never going to reach that plateau. Like the most, I've been doing better. I'm learning a little bit better. Like right now, my main Sork, when I'm fighting and using my spells and stuff, I'm hitting around, and some people will laugh, but I'm hitting around 64, 65K damage. But some of these other guys hit well over 1 million. Like it's crazy. So yeah, so let's get into this. It's only like a 10-minute video from DM. He's going to kind of go over. He's been on vacation. This is kind of done on the fly.
I have it right as I go on vacation. They drop all of the information for Season 4 of Diablo 4, which is named Loot Reborn. Now, they actually are going to talk about what the seasonal theme is, as well as break down all the changes. Here you can see the codex of all the different changes we're going to talk about today. They say this starts May 14th at 10 a.m. Pacific, so that's when Season 4 will begin. And it's sort of focused on the Hellborn, the Iron Wolves, and the Loot Reborn, which is the change of itemization. So the Iron Wolves, if you've been following along with the videos, this was Day the Mind as being a reputation sort of system with rewards. We're going to be fighting alongside them. They are a seasoned mercenary company of brethren aiming to quell the demons. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is the itemization reforged. If you've been watching videos, you're going to know a pretty good amount of this. So we're just going to talk about some of the general highlights of what.
I do want to point it out. Even though I have a class for each character, especially from Season 2, Season 3, I stuck with just the Sork. Going forward, that's all I'm really going to play unless I get a desire to play another character again. But right now, it's all about the Sorks. And so, just so you know, for those that always like complain about DEI and stuff, I'm planning on going with a black sorceress this time. So don't be mad. Like I have a couple of white ones or they're pale skin. So I'm going to have a black one. So I'm representing, I'm doing something different because you have the choice. It's a wonderful thing.
This is effectively, they are reworking itemization to make it more simple. Now, instead of having 4 affixes, legendary items only have 3, but those affixes will be much more simple. And then ancestral items will be able to get up to 5 affixes that you add 2 more on yourself. And the other legendary items will be able to add 1 more. So for instance, here's an example. You start with 3 affixes on a legendary ancestral item. It's very simple stats now: intelligence, damage, and damage over time. Then after you tempered it, now they added summoning damage and chance for the bone spear projectile to be cast twice. This is an ancestor item, so you can have 2 temperings. Now they're going to go down and break down the reasoning for why they did this, as well as some of the salvage materials. Basically, salvage materials across the board are getting buffed. It's going to be adjusted to match the drop rates that are required in order to actually do this. So that way you're not just always starving for salvage materials. Forgotten Souls can also be earned from the Whispered Bounties, and the gold cost to reroll items with enchanting now only has a maximum. So some quality of life.
Yeah, I will say the one thing that they kind of, I think they're adjusting is in order to get into the rifts, you have I forget what the item was that you had to collect, but dude, it was so hard and it was so expensive to, like, each time you had to go into a higher rift, it was more and more expensive with these particular items that you got through the Hell Tides. And gold and everything, like the rechant stuff was like expensive, so they had to bring that shit down again. Back to like they said, season 2 was the best because you were able to maximize your gold, but also not spend a whole lot to enchant stuff or re-roll your skill sets or your paragon boards. Because obviously, I don't mind following the metas because they usually have some really good builds. But they always are ever evolving and changing as these guys are playing. So I'm learning from them. Sladra, DM, Rax. I don't think I really watch Asmund. I don't think Asmund ever really goes into his builds. He just kind of just plays the game and that's it, really. I don't think he really, I mean, he does talk about it as he's doing it, but he's not someone who's going to explain it to you. But if you're someone who's new to Diablo 4 and want good guides, Rax, DM, Sladra, fucking 3 amazing dudes that really put some good content out there in terms of builds and stuff for every character.
Changes in terms of salvaging and crafting. Now, this one's kind of cool. Additionally, which world tier you play in would directly affect the rarity of the items you earn. So before, you'd be able to get sacred items in.
Oh, yeah, one quick thing. Hell Tides will now be available and on stages 1 and 2. So it used to be you don't want to get into the Hell Tides at level like stage 3 or 4. Now you can get it from the get-go in the game. So technically, even though I'm going to go play the story and do some Hell Tides, I want to have some fun with this. I want to encompass the entire story and everything because I want to be able to learn. I want to be able to do this Iron Wolves thing. But if you were someone who's just going to go in and power build straight away, you could probably just go straight into the Hell Tides. It will level down to you, but it'll still be a bitch. But you'll be able to get into those much sooner.
In World Tier 4, now that's no longer a thing. Sacreds only drop in World Tier 3. Ancestral only drop in World Tier 4. So you're no longer getting those items that you know for sure are completely worthless before you can pick them up because they say sacred when you're in-game, for instance. So this is a nice quality of life change. And items will always be 925 power if over level 95.
I don't know if they're going to change it. I'm glad that he kind of reminded me. The difference in PTR, you have to be careful. I don't know if they're going to change it. Now, if you play Diablo 4, you know that whenever you do like your dismantling of your items to get the materials right, it would never dismantle Ubers or legendary items. It'd only do the yellows or blues and grays. Now, if you try to do that, like if you do all items, it will destroy everything. So be wary if you get any kind of uber uniques, whatever legendary items that you want to keep, do not destroy them. Don't hit all destroy because you would just destroy everything and you'll lose them.
Monster that they dropped from. So for that reason, again, you're guaranteed, you see an item, legendary item, it's going to be an ancestral if it's over a 95, and you know it's a 925 item power. So you're much more willing to look at each and every item because you have a much higher chance of
level
that being
95,
usable
so
while there's still
that's a
no item
long way
filter
to
in the
go,
game.
man.
This is filtering down innately the amount of garbage that we'll be showing on the ground for some quality of life. Also, Ubers can now drop at level 55 monsters and higher, so much earlier you could get lucky with an Uber, and uniques can start dropping now in World Tier 1 and 2. So basically anywhere in the game, you can now start having unique items to drop, and all uniques will start dropping at World Tier 3. So we're getting all of the uniques earlier and some of the uniques even earlier everywhere in the game. So you could get that rather early, which would be nice. And this also means things like if you're one of the druids trying to get Temperance Roar, for instance, you could get that while you're leveling as opposed to having to level and then go to World Tier 4 and hopefully get it there. So that's a nice quality of life change. Speaking of quality of life, the Codex of Power now is upgraded and stores your legendary aspects. So before, one of the big tips I had to give people was like, save your max row legendary aspects for when you get a good item. That's no longer relevant. You don't have to do that anymore because now when you salvage and you get your aspects, they get stored in the codex, saving inventory space as well as being able to reuse those aspects over and over again. This is a really nice quality of life change. You do have to refarm these every season, but it will go back to the Eternal Realm once you do it and store permanently in the Eternal Realm whatever you did in your season. But as you acquire these and max them out, they're going to have a little frame showing that you've got a max roll of it, for instance. So this is probably going to be one of the nicest quality of life changes for people. Tempering is how you're going to add additional affixes. So like I say, you can only have 3 affixes, 4 on legendaries and 5 on the ancestral legendaries, and you can temper something twice, adding 2 more different affixes on them with crafting manuals or recipes, basically, that you're going to be finding around the world. These recipes will give you an opportunity to add one of the different affixes here. For instance, you can see this is the Bone Augments, Tempering, Crafting Manual, and it will give you 4 different ones, chance for Bone Splinters to go twice.
Yeah, keep in mind aside from the aspects is when I talked about how you can change enchantments for your gear. They also apply to like resistances, which is huge because I have 2 Sorks right now. My main one is really strong, but the one I did for season 3, she her resistances are pretty low and it's kind of hard to get them up, and she's not quite hitting the power that my Eternal Realm one is, so it's a little weird because I'm using the same build, but it's all dependent on the stats and everything else. So I don't know if I'm able to balance that out once she moves to the Eternal Realm and once I'm able to change, because I'm going to have to change all their gear equipment. There's no way that I can go with uniques, honestly, going forward, like unless I can find something that's gonna improve my build over, like, so let's say amulet. If I find something that's gonna improve my build dramatically over the legendary, even with all the aspects changes and everything, then yeah, like I would like to keep the Oculus as my weapon, but you need the legendary in order to change some stats there and to build up your armor and your resistances and your attack power. So yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm going to have to kind of look at these guys that are going to be playing and watch their meta builds of certain builds that I like and see how they go. But I'm very like uniques, something that Slater said, uniques just will become useless in season 4. And it's really kind of sad because you're going to be wanting to collect them anyway. Because like I have a bunch stored up. I did this on purpose because I knew something like this would happen. So when season 4 starts, I'm going to go into my Eternal Realm first after I create my Seasonal Realm character. But go into my Eternal Realm and then I'm going to destroy any lower uniques that I have that aren't 925, or if I have too many of them, to get those materials so that I can start doing some things with my Eternal Realm Sorks. But it's one reason why I didn't destroy a lot of them, because I just held on to. I knew at some point we were going to have to do something different with those. And even though they're pretty much worthless, I'm going to keep a whole tab full of them for my character so that whatever other changes, or if I feel like I want to play around and see how they affect my builds for each character, then I'll do that.
Chance for Bone Spear to cast twice. You can see, so you get a chance to get one of these 4. You can temper an item twice, having, again, from the 3 base to a total of 5 affixes. So we're actually going on the high end, 1 more affix than before, but now the affixes should be more simple, and only the more complicated ones really can drop from like these crafting manuals here. Here's an example of the crafting manual that you would get, and then you right click it and you learn it. You don't need a manual to be consumed in order to do one tempering. Manuals, once you've learned them permanently for your account, so you don't have to worry about reacquiring this over and over and over again as a consumable material. There's also now masterworking, and masterworking is a way to continually upgrade your items. So these are going to, as you masterwork with materials that you get from the pit, which we'll talk about in just a moment, as you masterwork, it's going to increase the percentage of all your affixes, and every 4 of your masterworks, it's going to massively increase 1 of the affixes. This is can happen a total of 12 times to masterwork an item. There is a chance of failuring this, which is why it says success chance 100th or lower. But as you go higher and higher, the chance to fail will become higher and higher as well, meaning there's going to be a little bit of RNG and some grind behind actually fully masterworking an item. And obviously there's RNG behind which of the affixes will get massively increased. So the end game in terms of itemization is going to be acquiring items, doing the pit in order to get masterworking materials, farming the masterworking over and over again, and hopefully hitting that RNG of hitting the correct stat line that you're trying to buff here. Now they say using the rarest material.
Yeah, I do hope though that they again lower the cost of that, because I ran into that problem in PTR where trying to upgrade items, you went through gold very fast and materials very fast. So you know, in order not to like come at a standstill where you're constantly having to grind, a lot, it's kind of fun. I mean, doing the health ties during PTR was amazing, but you still want to be able to see your characters get strong enough to go do some of the other things in the game. But if you're spending most of your time grinding for those materials, then you're kind of wasting some time there. And because this will probably affect both seasonal and eternal realm, I may be jumping back and forth because, like I said, I'll probably create my seasonal character, even though I'm really excited to play season 4, but I'm going to probably jump into the eternal realm just to see what I can do if some of those, because I've already done a lot with my main character on the eternal realm. So if I log into that in season 4 when it begins, well, I have some of these affixes to change the armor and stuff like, the juggernaut aspect and all that. Well, I have those already because I have so many other things to do. I have to go out and do grinding for these scrolls or whatever. So it's really interesting.
Materials found from the deepest mining caverns, basically the pit. Improve your weapons to the absolute pinnacle of their potential. Masterworking is an in-game crafting system using materials earned from the pit to upgrade your weapons. Improves the overall strength of all affixes on your weapon, but at every 4 massively upgrades one of your equipped affixes, and that affix receives a bonus that will turn blue. If the same affix is approved again, it will turn yellows, and in rare cases, it will be orange. So you're going blue, yellow, orange. Hopefully you get orange, and all 3 of them are on like damage percentage or something crazy, and you can see a little bit of visual here. All affixes are increased by 5%, for instance. So if you hit the max level of masterworking on a given weapon and you're unsatisfied with the improvements in your weapon, you can reset it and go again. So if you get a good base item that you want, the base item isn't ruined, you can keep going, try to upgrade it. You're like, I didn't get it, I'm going to do the whole process over again, and you can start reworking your item once again. Now, greater affixes are pretty cool. Now, they had an example of greater affixes earlier, which is effectively one of the items. I'll scroll up here so you can see this. One of your affixes, in fact, multiple affixes, have the opportunity to be a greater affix, which is what this little star is here next to damage. A greater affix is effectively an affix that has a higher base stat, like it's buffed from the get-go, and you can literally get all of these affixes to have this. It's just RNG that you have it. It's sort of like exalted if you're familiar with Last Epoch, and this can also happen on unique items, and it can happen up to all affixes. So this is actually pretty wild, and this is Imagine you have a greater affix on damage, for instance, and then you triple row masterworking and becomes like an orange greater affix. You're going to have an insane amount of damage. So the ceiling on gear is much higher now, but the floor on terms of quality of it should be higher as well, meaning you're not scouring all of the garbage loot as often. It won't be as annoying to acquire the items, but once you get them, you can improve them higher than we used to be able to. And obviously you can still enchant gear, etc. So as we scroll down to continue to the next point here, each affix on the item has a chance to be greater affix. You cannot enchant an affix into a greater affix. Their awesome power may only be discovered. And they mentioned the greater affix is 1.5 times effectively that what a normal base would be. And it does come with an audio cue when it drops. So you get, a tink of when that item drops, which is a nice addition. Gems are simpler, streamlined, more effective across your character's journey. Crew gems have been removed. Crafting levels have been shifted back. Normal gems at 51, flawless 71, royal 91. Diamonds have had their all resistance values increased. Topaz now provide increased intelligence. Sapphires willpower.
Yeah, I think the resistances are now higher because, like, initially in season 3 and the previous seasons, you can max out like 70%, but now I think you can go like to 100%, but even go over a little bit. Maybe. I think that's what I read.
Amethyst, strength, emeralds now provide bonus dexterity. So gems just feel a little bit better and have some better design behind them. All resistance being increased is nice by diamonds, for instance. Now, Helltide Reborn. Now, the Helltides have basically been reworked in order to have significant more mob density and rewards from them. And I can tell you, I hated Helltide before. I actually didn't farm them at all. I didn't do many Uber Durios. I never got an Uber item because I just don't like farming living steel. I don't enjoy it at all. So I don't do things I don't enjoy.
Well, I don't mind the Helltides again, but it just comes down to whenever you die, you lose half of them. And so you've got this time limit of 1 hour to achieve as many and unlock as many chests as possible. So it takes so many senders. So for like the mystery boxes, which is usually what I go first, because right now in season 3, I'm attempting to get a lot of 925 items to hold over to my eternal realm, because the more I can grab from there, the better chances of just straight up upgrading my main Sork right off the bat. But if you die by accident, like one time I was taking a break to talk to my wife about something, and immediately I had some group mob me and they killed me, so it pissed me off. But it takes like 250 senders to open both mystery boxes, so you need to get 500 of those, and then if time allows it, it takes 275 to open up the infinite chest, which has all the living steel. And of course now I'm building up all these elixirs and stuff, which I gotta make room for. The only thing I hate is, and I wish Blizzard would allow us to at least access the tab for your elixirs to use in the seasons, because once you've maxed out your character on the Eternal Realm, you really don't need the elixirs anymore unless you're going to fight like a boss or something like that. But it doesn't do anything for you in terms of experience.
Enjoy. But the new Helltide not only seems to be the best way to level in the game now, but the mob density is significantly increased. They did this a number of ways, one of which is the mob density itself is just higher, but there's threat levels that happen sort of like Grand Theft Auto stars, that as you're going through and clearing out mobs, you're generating threat at different levels. Different things are going to happen. For instance, you'll get these, worms that are going to pop up and attack you. You'll get the marked guy.
Well, once you've, I'm trying to remember, because playing PTR, man, once you've destroyed like a certain thing, you get like a sort of like a mini boss, but it's hard to beat them by yourselves. Even when I was on my temp character, which they allowed you to raise your character straight to 100 for the PTR event just to see what it's like and go through the motions of building your character a little bit to see how the power level was. And I was doing well over 90 to 100k damage on PTR, which excited me immensely. But these little mini bosses that show up, like it takes like 2 or 3 of you to take them down, and that's the thing. They said that they're going to kind of nuke a little bit. I think the Barbarian, which is one of the stronger characters. Like did I test them? I think I did. I tested the Druid and Barbarian, and man, they were hitting for like over 150k. Like that to me was a bit of a disparity because Sork is going to be stronger than usual, but still not on the level. I think they should all be kind of close in range. Because the thing is, the Barb and the Druid is still stronger defensively too. So even if you're not going to give the Sork a whole lot more power or attack power, you should be giving them at least a little bit better defense. And I hope they kind of adjust that a little bit.
That will pop up and attack you. Basically, more mobs are going to start appearing around you. And this does seem unique per player. So I noticed when there's a bunch of players together, like there's quite a bit of mobs. Once you hit level 3, you will become Hellmarked. Once you've been Hellmarked, you'll be besieged by a frenzy of densely packed monsters. What it is. Nice. If you make it out alive, the Hellborn will come for you. This is sort of
that
like
raises up for how many kills you get, and then once it happens, that's when
season 2,
you get a shit ton of mobs at you.
They actually referenced in one of the interviews with Rod Ferguson that I covered earlier on the channel that they specifically took lessons they learned from season 2, which people liked. It was a well-received season, and they added it into season 4 within the Helltide. I actually like this because the Blood Harvest was one of my favorite parts about.
Yeah, they didn't add in one of the vampiric powers that everyone liked, and that was, I forget which one it was, but fuck, man, it was so good. It allowed you to control mobs a lot easier. It was like a grand thing. Everybody loved it, but that's not one of the ones they put in there.
Season 2, so I think that was a good lesson learned there. Unholy Blasphemy, there's an accursed ritual. That's what it looks like. It's the ultimate testament to the disturbing lengths these maniac cultists will go on. Here's where you can begin
That's
the
main boss
ritual.
there for
the
that
baneful
one.
hearts can be earned by opening torture gifts through the Helltide and by defeating the Hellborn enemies. Deposit 3 baneful hearts to begin the ritual, which will commence with a swarm of demonic demons. I tested this during the PTR. Effectively, remember the Blood Lords when you had like the 50 Blood Lords and put them all in the middle and a ton of mobs come? That's basically what this is, but also has a cool, unique boss with it that's fairly difficult. Lots of monsters show up, and yes, you can contribute one of the hearts, or someone else can contribute another, so you can do it as a group. So I guarantee you, this will be one of the fastest ways to level in the game. You're going to go there, random people will be putting these hearts together, summoning monsters over and over and over again, and you will basically be swarmed. This would be like a horde mode. Very enjoyable to do, actually. The boss is fairly difficult in load sign. So Helltides in World Tier 1 and 2. You can now do the Helltides earlier, and again, this is basically one of, if not the fastest way to level in the game. And there's additional changes. An exceptionally valuable new elixir called the Profane Mind Cage is available to up the ante. It's consuming one will increase the level of the Helltide monsters by 10, but also boost the cinder drop rates. So this is a way, once you get really strong, to farm this even faster. These are a guaranteed drop after killing Hellborn. So you'll see diminishing returns on boosted monster levels closer to level cap. Keep progressing the world tiers to retain the same benefits from this potent elixir. The Mind Cage will only last until the season, into season 4. So this is part of a seasonal mechanic, okay? They've also added fresh events, been added to Helltide. This is true. They added basically events from season 2 and season 3, sort of reskinned Helltide versions into them, which I am perfectly fine with because I like these the season 2 events. The season 3 events not as much, but the season 2 events I actually like a good deal. And having the events in here means more monsters, which is basically what everyone wants. Now they're going to talk about the pit here. Now, the pit, they say, is, well, let's just read it here. Upon entering World Tier 4, you receive a priority quest to complete a Tier 46 Nightmare Dungeon. Upon completion, you'll begin to collect rune shards by playing through different in-game activities. So appear when you encounter Helltides, World Bosses, Legion events, Nightmare Dungeons, and Whisper Bounties. Collect the rune shards to activate the Obelisk, allowing you to descend into the beckoning depths of the pit. So basically, you got to do a few of the activities. You get the pieces, you forge together. It creates greater rifts, more or less. And it's basically a greater rift. So you have a 10-minute limit to go through, kill the monsters. I quite like this. The greater rifts were somewhat controversial for people. I just like it because it's an easy way. It's like, all I want to do is kill monsters. I don't have to deal with all this just BS. You just go into the pit, you slay some monsters, you run to the end, you kill a boss, you get your reward, you're done. You get experience, the whole thing, you're fine. So I actually quite like this addition here. When you die, it removes 30 seconds. Second death removes 60. Third and subsequent are 90 deaths, okay? And the pits go up higher and higher and higher tiers as you choose to select what tier you want to do. After enough monsters are slain, Portal materializes, transporting you to the boss area. Slay the boss before the timer expires to get the cover of masterwork of materials. This is the Obbisite, or whatever they call it. And the next through the tier of the pit. So you go, I did tier 1, now tier 2, and now tier 5, now tier, et cetera, et cetera. Killing the boss with 6 or more minutes grants you 2 additional tiers. So if you're really blasting through, this will help you skip through the tiers even faster. And there's 200 total levels of the pit if you dare to face the challenge. The pit can be entered in groups of up to 4 players, with the player who spins the rune shards to open the pit earning the lion's share of the materials. Only the player who opened the pit has a chance of receiving the tantalizing Stygian stones used for summoning the tormented echoes, level 200 variants of the boss down in Diablo 4. That's right, there are now like uber versions of the Uber bosses, so you can actually fight those, which will be a nice way for people to test out their power, as the power ceiling seems to have been increased with Season 4. One of these Uber bosses would be Endario. So people ask for other bosses to come back. They actually added Ode bosses back in the game. The Maiden of Anguish has returned in all her tormented glory. She joins the boss ladder at the same tier as her brother Durio, with the same uber unique drop rate with a mix of shadow, fire, lightning, and her iconic poison attack. And Durio stands ready to face all who dare fathom to bring about her demise. And it tells you where you can find her east of Tazarak in the Hanged Man's Halls. Then they also
I'll probably never see level 200. Like, even with Nightmare Dungeons, I've never gone above like 56, because I would just get my ass kicked. Like, it's tough. Like, unless you really know what you're fucking doing. But, I might be able to test those boundaries once Season 4 kicks, because if I can change my armor and stuff and increase the damage I do, then I might be able to go up more in Nightmare Dungeons. So, but then, of course, by that point, you're probably still going to be going to the pit, which is aka the rift, and doing that, because that's going to be more effective in terms of prizes and stuff like that.
Also talk about the Tormented Echoes, which are basically these level 200 ones here. It will require more summon materials to summon them, but you will also be receiving more loot for it. And they say all items dropped from it will be guaranteed 925, of course, and defeating your first Tormented Echo drops 1 Resplendent Spark as a first-time reward. So you get 1 spark, which is effectively used to craft an uber unique. So it will help you towards your journey of crafting an uber unique, for instance. Now, this is the seasonal mechanic. Fight with the Iron Wolves. Okay, seek out the battle-hardened stalwart Suda the Anvil. I don't even know if I pronounced that right. Stoic field commander of the Iron Wolves. The Iron Wolves are a band of noble mercenaries in the south seeking to protect the common people of Sanctuary, yada, 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 lore stuff. Okay, so basically it is, in fact, an Iron Wolves event. There's your seasonal theme. The data mine was showing that there's different chests that have all kinds of established materials to items that drop from this. So just expect this will be the quest line. Typically, the seasonal quest line aren't the major part of it. It's the boss fights and stuff that come with the seasons, but this will be your seasonal quest line here. Now, earn the rewards with the seasonal journey and battle pass. I'm not going to go into the battle pass too much. Normally, don't care about the battle pass too much, but if you do, there's sort of your...
I don't mind the battle pass too much. I mean, I think... because even when I went into Season 3, I had earned enough of the silver to get the battle pass anyway. So, like, even though here and there I've paid for some microtransaction for like a certain piece of gear, as cosmetic or something like that, but or horse or whatever. But for the most part, most of the stuff that's offered through the Game Pass it's decent. It's not mind-blowing. Obviously their best stuff is always in the shop, but I'm just selective about what I choose. So depending on what it is, like I bought one piece of nice gear for my Necro, which was really cool. It's like a doll type thing going on. But it's sporadic. I don't spend like a shit ton of money. Like some people cry about that shit a lot, but no one's forcing you to buy those. It does kind of suck that you can't really achieve those randomly in the game, but I get why they do it.
Visual for that. Season 4 Loot Reborn begins in May 14th, 10 a.m. PT there. Hosts 90 reward tiers. You can see there's your season journey. You can see we get temporary manuals, which makes sense to help you acquire stuff you need for the affix. And of course, the season journey is 100% free. You can get the premium battle pass if you want to acquire these cool little horses here. And the earns are boost Paragon Glyph experience, boost your reputation with the Iron Wolves, the seasonal mechanic, and boost the amount of oboes you get. That looks like the realm there. And then acquired the Fabled Threads here. So look at that. Looks like we have some more cosmetic. Also, they're dialing up the heat in the shop with new equipment, armor, accessories, mount armor bundles. That'll be playing in style. So this is sort of your purchasable cosmetics. They're going to have a bunch more of that. And then they're going to link down below the community guides. Of course, I'm going to shout out my boy Max Rowe because I am part of the Max Rowe team. So highly recommend checking out Maxrow if you're going to be needing any guides for Season 4. And then they say
Yeah, I
here,
usually
stay up to
use
date with the Diablo 4 news.
Maxroll or Mobalytics. Back up a little bit. Icy Veins has got some cool stuff. I don't usually use Wowhead unless I'm doing World of Warcraft, but certainly Mobalytics is pretty good.
Date with the Diablo 4 news, because on May 2nd, 11 a.m. Pacific, which is tomorrow, there will be the developer update live stream. And your boy is on vacation. I'm sitting actually on a beach here in Hawaii, and we will be live streaming this basically from the edge of the beach here and checking out what the developer.
Well, good for him, man, because like he lives in Alaska, so he's out in the cold all the time. So yeah, there you have it, man. There's a little bit of a breakdown of what's going to be happening for Season 4 Diablo 4. I know a lot of people have abandoned the game. They don't really have a lot of interest in coming back, which is fine. I know Hog still dislikes it a lot. I think I need to watch a video. It had like a 7-minute video where he was talking about it, so I know he's probably like, don't fall for the hype. You know, that's how Hog is with Diablo 4, but I love that dude. But I still play Diablo 4. I enjoy the game. I just do. And until Path of Exile comes out, the second one, to see how that is, yeah, just even going back and playing Diablo 3, like it's too slow. I like the fluidity of Diablo 4. It just does a lot more for me, and and I don't have to have overcomplication. So Path of Exile, you have to have a lot of different more spots on your keyboard. Everyone complains about Diablo 4 not having enough weapons of choice or spells, and I'm like, I don't really need a lot. Just make them more interesting, or sorry, I'm updating my gaming computer here, but either just update them a little bit or add some variations to them. Like there's so much you can do without adding 20 more fucking button features, because who's gonna really sit there and try to do that shit all day when you're looking at your keyboard, not what's going on screen? I just don't need that much, like in that way. AD&D, that's me. Like I just too much going on. I can't sit there and focus on 20 buttons at a time. But I don't begrudge anybody who plays Path of Exile. If they enjoy it, hats off to you. Enjoy it. Enjoy whatever games you want to enjoy. For me, Diablo 4 is fun. Has some work to go, but I'm willing to be patient with it. And so far with PTR, patience, it looks like it's paying off, at least to a certain point. I'm sure there's still going to be some things I want tweaked, but for now, it seems very, very promising with what they got planned. So I'm very happy about that. So you have to give kudos to the Blizzard devs for taking the time to try to make the game better. They're listening to the people talking to them. They're consumers, is what you're supposed to do. All right. So coming up tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, I believe, Cinematic Synergy, we're doing another movie with Kevin Lambert from the Entertainment Headquarters. I believe it's called Freaks. I have to get back to watching that film and watch it. And then later in the evening, Neko and I will be doing another Classic Reflections podcast audio for Static X's Wisconsin Death Trip. We're going to go through the record start to finish and talk a little bit about each song, as well as the theory and the lyrical content behind it. And you guys can give your input on that in the comment section on Podbean and stuff like that. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for supporting this channel. Subscribe if you like the content. Please check out Darth Microtransaction as well as Lady Decade on their channels for the stuff that they provided with the videos for us today, and give the support as well. So thanks a lot, and see you later here on the Metal Time Radio podcast.